Ever since I was introduced to Knight Sidonia, I've been pretty much a huge fan of Nihei's work. I really do love the worlds that he crafts, and most of the time it seems like his storytelling is around rediscovering the world itself, not really necessarily building the world, but kind of rediscovering the ruins of technologies and stuff of the past. It seems to be kind of an ongoing theme that he likes to explore. And following watching the series, I went out and actually bought the entire manga series, went through that entire thing, even went out and got other works like Apozim's and this big old thing of blow. I really do love his work, and I really do appreciate the fact that he sort of kind of introduced me and broke the barriers that I had against CGI anime. Now, while I always say I would always prefer 2D animation, I did appreciate the work that Polygon Pictures did, especially with Knight Sidonia. And so yes, when I seen the two of them come together once again, it seems like Nihei and Polygon Pictures just go hand in hand everywhere. When I seen their new announcement for Kaina of the Great Snow Sea, I was of course intrigued, ready to jump right into another one of Nihei's worlds. Or universes. But did this series live up to my expectations for the first 3 episodes? That's the big question marks. It's going to be running for 11 episodes, and they've already announced a movie will be following it up as well. But this is my first impressions of Kaina of the Great Snow Sea, a series that is airing in the winter 2023 anime season, so let's jump right into it. Kaina of the Great Snow Sea opens up with this world that is completely engulfed by this sea of snow. And protruding from this planet covered in snow are these great spire trees that all seem to kind of blossom this huge canopy that surrounds the planet. And when we open up the series, we follow Kaina, who is currently walking along that canopy, and he's looking for food. Specifically these insects that actually work to kind of repair the canopy if there's tears in it. And as he returns back home after getting a hunt, we see that his village that he's from is pretty much a retirement home. It's just a bunch of old people. Bunch of old people and this one guy that's known as the sign keeper. And these old people are kind of concerned for Kaina. At some point they found him, he kind of traveled from a distant area and they brought him into the village, and he's the only youngster of this village anymore. This is a dying village. It seems as if the trees that spread this canopy around the planet, it's running out of water. And plus, more of these tears are happening, so it's almost as if this world of living on top of this canopy is dying away. And again, Kaina has no people that will be there after these elderly people die. It almost feels as if he's the last of their generation. It's the last of the humankind. And as I said earlier, one of these elderly is a sign keeper. He's this guy that seems to be obsessed with looking into these signs that were brought to him at some point. A long time ago, a sign keeper came by from another village that died away, and he brought all these signs and showed him how to read them, and instilled upon him the importance of knowing how to read these signs. And yes, as you can gather, these signs are pretty much like of an old civilization. They're things like, watch out for falling things from above, like from a construction site. Well, despite you seeing that the elderly folks of this place are concerned for Kaina and his future after they pass away, he's kind of fascinated by the world that he's seeing below. Despite the fact that everybody in this village believes that nothing is below them, it's just nothing but a sea of snow, he sees that things are kind of shifting around, and additionally that he's seeing some sort of lights coming from down at the snow sea. Well, this is where we shift perspectives down to the sea below, which is Liliha. Liliha is from the kingdom of Atland, and they are currently trying to find some sort of resolve for the issue they're having. There's another nation known as Valgian, which is going around to all of these nations and stealing all their water and threatening their lives. And Liliha, in the wake of the upcoming negotiations with this kingdom, is trying to seek a resolve for their issue with water. Yes, similar to Kaina and the rest of the folks above the canopy, they're running out of water from the trees themselves. But she's trying to enact a plan to seek out this sage that her mother once told her about. This sage that once created the spires themselves and retreated into this forest. So they're enacting a plan to hook up onto one of these floating creatures that float up into the sky and see if it will bring her above the canopy. And yes, at the same time, they're attacked by this other nation. Everybody's wiped out except for Liliha, but she makes it onto one of these things and floats all the way above the canopy. That's where Kaina spots her, drawn by this odd light. He rescues Liliha and brings him into the village where everybody's happy. All the elderly people are like, yay, a girl just randomly appeared. Kaina will have a partner for the rest of his life. But no, Liliha is again looking for the sage, which of course, none of these people are the sage. And yes, they bring the news to her that they're the only ones left up there. There is no sage. So Liliha, kind of losing her whole purpose of being up there, she has to return back home. But again, they're like, there's no way down. It's just a long drop. And getting one of these floaters to come up there again is kind of impossible. But that's when the sign keeper comes into play. He realizes that this girl needs to get back home. Kaina has nobody up here left, so he decides to assign Kaina to bring her back home using these ancient tools from the past, which, yes, are pretty much rock climbing gear. So following this, Kaina and Liliha travel all the way down this tree spire, all the way to the base of it, where, yes, they end up running into this other kingdom again, and they flee. And that's pretty much where we leave episode 3 of the series. So my thoughts on Kaina of the Great Snow Sea. First of all, I think this is an absolutely fascinating and beautiful world. Polygon Pictures has pretty much consistently over time improved their way of really portraying a world and visuals and everything, and I think they're doing a fantastic job. And I will admit, way back in the days of watching Knights of Sidonia, they always had a little rough style with the character designs themselves, and it really does feel like over time, and especially with this one, they're kind of improving that style. There's still some misses, especially around the facial dimensions and stuff like that, but overall, visually, it looks really good. And a lot of these perspective shots and the visual directing and the background drops looked absolutely gorgeous, especially on top of the canopy. Those visual shots of this, like, pretty much like this area that's way up, almost at the highest points of our atmosphere, is really what it feels like it's at, is just absolutely breathtaking. It looks visually beautiful. And yeah, like the creatures and the people in this world and the armors and the outfits all look really creative and interesting. And as I said several times before with Nihei, he does a really great job of kind of creating a world that is already kind of established, but people have kind of forgotten about how it came to be. And I love kind of that exploration of the world itself that he typically does. I mean, with Blamu, it's like literally this underground high-tech facility, and I'm like, how did this come to be? What's all these things inside of it? Aposims with its crazy kind of world building, which felt very similar to Blamu. And yes, Nice Sidonia with them fleeing out in the universe and fighting these alien forces and trying to figure out what they're about. It's truly fascinating, and I'm getting the same sense with Great Snow Sea. Wanting to know already, is there something below the snow? Is it even snow? That's the big question mark. It looks like bubbles. It looks like a bunch of bubbles, the way that it kind of, the physics works for it. But they're calling it snow, so I'm assuming it's snow. But it really does feel like it can't be snow because it's like water. Like when they fall into it, they just kind of sink unless they have these floating devices. So it gives you a sense that this is almost like a sea of clouds, really. And if you fall through that sea of clouds, you just fall. But again, it's like water. So where did this snow come from? How did they learn to survive on it? How did they learn to float on it? What created the spires, and what's this canopy that surrounds it? Why is the canopies dying? All those question marks are already flooding through my head, and I'm really curious as how they're going to get into that. And especially the heavy emphasis that they put on this series already, with several segments talking about signs. The sign keeper. Why do they have a sign keeper, and why is he obsessed with these construction signs? He mentions something to Kaina as he's leaving about how look for the signs, and if you find them, read them out loud. That was something that was, again, instilled upon him, and he instilled upon Kaina. So how important is that going to be, and what's the significance of, again, random signs? I guess the important thing there is that it's probably going to be ancient writing that the signkeeper was taught, and he taught to Kaina, and so it'd be important to possibly later on, when they do run into just an old civilization and their signs, and they're basically just written word, and how important it will be when Kaina sees that and nobody else can read it. Again, it's like ancient wall writing. But they've already kind of established a living, breathing world that I'm really fascinated by, and kudos for them. Now, the offset to that, the negative that comes from that, is that this first 3 episodes has been mostly establishing that. I think a lot of the 3rd episode is kind of seeing Kaina and Lilaha and them kind of building a bond because they had to spend so much time traveling down this tree. I mean, at some point, she's like, how long is it going to be till we get there? It's like, girl, that's a tall tree. That's going to be a long time. I think he initially said it's going to take 30 days, which is funny that it took so long before they kind of established that, oh, yeah, by the way, you have to use the restroom. But yeah, I kind of feel like, despite the fact that I'm intrigued by the world itself, I don't really think we've established much for characters. We haven't really established much for the overall plot line currently, besides essentially a fight over resources. Because yes, both those that are above the canopy and those below it are struggling for resources, water. You have this other nation that's going around to all of these trees, because all these villages are basically living at the base of all these spires. They used to live at top of them, but they live at the base of these spires, and they have limited space that they can build on there because it's on the roots of these trees. And there's this one country that has power that's going around and destroying everybody to steal their resources. So it's obviously going for this idea that we have this limited resource, we're running out of it, and Lilaha, and I'm assuming Kaina will join her, is trying to find a way to find a new resource, find out where we can get more water, or how can we produce more water. Now, what does it have to do with a sage? A sage disappearing to this forest? That's a big question mark. Is Kaina essentially the grandchild or something of this folk tale about this sage that ran off to the forest? That's probably where it's going to go, because again, it doesn't establish that Kaina has any sort of family up there above the canopy. They just found him one day, it seems. Well, he does claim that his mother died at birth. I do love the fact that it seems like every single one of Nihei's works is sort of kind of intertwined somehow. Yes, definitely by style itself. I mean, the jackets that they're wearing in this world, the armor that you have this other kingdom is wearing, it's like they look straight out of Aposims or something. He definitely has a style that he goes for. But I think the reason why it's so intriguing to me is that you have a lot of theory crafters out there that really are trying to tie in all these different universes and worlds into one thing. Is Knights of Sidonia after they flee from the Earth? Maybe this is way in the future after they left and it became covered in snow and stuff. It really does feel like he's already kind of hinting at things like that, but at the same time, you know, he maybe wants to kind of separate those worlds. But it's hard to not see that with the similar style in each one of them, which again is a style that I really enjoy. I love his style. I think one thing they can do, and they've already kind of started establishing it with the characters, is obviously Kaina has been living peacefully in this one village for such a long time. And now he's been introduced to Liliha, come down to the surface of the snow, and now he's seeing that, wait, why are they killing each other? Like, why are people killing each other? He doesn't even understand it. It doesn't click for him. Now, granted, he's not become obnoxious and starts to try to, preach to these guys, you're wrong, you shouldn't be doing this. But at least it's kind of establishing that idea of, yeah, this is not normal. While at the same time, it's normal to Liliha. She's seen plenty of death already. If I had to give one negative of this show, is the dolphin things they ride looked a little bit off. They were like riding through the snow. And again, it doesn't look like it's snow. So maybe that's just an oddity about this whole situation. But seeing them kind of floating through this snow looked really awkward. But it's interesting to see kind of the technologies and stuff they use. They have, this other kingdom has ships. And so they're riding around on ships and they have arrows and they're slinging rocks. It looks like Atlan, they have at least, I don't know, was it acorn shooters? It's almost like pirates and medieval time technologies kind of merging into one. So it's got its own aesthetic there as well. But yeah, with all that said, I am kind of mixed overall, honestly. I think, again, the world itself is fascinating. The world building itself is fascinating. Kind of slowly breathing life into this world has already intrigued me. But at the same time, I do acknowledge that we're already 3 episodes in. There's only 11 episodes. I'm already kind of getting a little concerned that we're not going to get enough development of the characters and the overall story in the time that we're allotted. But again, granted, we do have a movie coming up after this, and that could be essentially another maybe 3 episodes at least worth of content that they'd be going on there. So it's technically like a 14-episode series. And yes, this is a mixed media project, so there's a possible chance that they'll continue it in the manga and it might not be a complete story. I hope not. I really do hope not. Originally, they planned this as an original. And then over time, we found out they were doing a manga on the side as well, which was releasing later. So my hope is that they are going to tell a complete story here, and it's not going to be a drop-off point and say, well, check out the manga whenever it gets to this point later on, because I'm assuming that the manga itself is going to take quite a while before they even catch up to what they've already established here, because again, it's starting in February. Overall, I'm interested. I like the style. I'm always a fan of Polygon Pictures, despite everybody thinking that Orange is the only CGI studio that matters. I do like Polygon Pictures. They've done a lot of really great works, and I cannot wait to see more of this series. But I'm not sold. I'm not completely sold on it yet. But I'll trust Nihei to do a fantastic job at building this world. But that's my thoughts on Kaina of the Great Snow Sea. If any of that sounds interesting, definitely check it out. If you like this video, make sure that like button down below. Comment, let me know what you think of the series so far if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support the channel more, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, super thanks, and a membership button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel, and y'all take care.